So I'm never going to prune my tomatoes again, and I want to talk to you a bit about why that is. Before I tell you why, let me talk about why they tell you you're supposed to prune your tomatoes. Conventional gardening wisdom tells you to prune your tomatoes and prune them so that you basically get one kind of central lead, and on that's where you're trying to grow a fewer number of really good, really perfect tomatoes, and you're channeling the energy into just those tomatoes. Another reason is to prune in order to try to curb disease. The thought being that if you're pruning away branches, you're creating a space for more air to flow through, and hopefully that will prevent some diseases from striking your tomatoes. And we've done that. We have pruned our tomatoes like that in years past, and we actually find that the crop, the harvest, is worse than just letting them go. So we are really picky when it comes to selecting the varieties of the vegetables that we're going to grow. In fact, this year we actually grew 7 varieties of garlic just to find the one that grows best in our garden. And I made a video on that, and if you want to check that out, I'll leave a link for it down in the description box. When it comes to everything that we grow in the garden, we are very picky, whether it's beans, peppers, zucchini, and for sure with the tomatoes. You know, the reason for that is we're trying to find the best tasting, the best producing tomatoes. And if we try a variety and it doesn't produce as well, it doesn't taste as good, or we don't get as many as other tomatoes that we're growing, we're not going to grow that one again. It's like you get one shot, and if you don't make it, you're out. That means we're already selecting for the best tomatoes for our garden. And the other thing that we really try to keep in mind is our growing season and where our garden is positioned. We try not to plant any tomatoes that are going to mature in more than 80 days. And the reason is because where our garden is, once we get into that first week of September, this effectively becomes a shade garden. So that means that any tomatoes that at that point are still green are probably not going to ripen. So we want to grow more tomatoes, not less. And when you're pruning tomato plants to get that fewer number of really high quality tomatoes, you do put yourself at risk for, you know, anything that's going to come along and mess up that crop. You could lose the whole thing. And every year we get tomato hornworm caterpillars that come through and eat plants and eat tomatoes, and we have chipmunks, and there's no getting rid of chipmunks, so they're always going to come. They're always going to take some of the crop. So we need to kind of plan to grow extra, so that way we don't notice. It's not a big deal if chipmunks are going to eat a few of the tomatoes. When it comes to diseases, we found that diseases on your tomato plants, it's pretty much inevitable, especially as you get into the fall. We're here, it gets cooler, the days get shorter, and oftentimes it's wetter in the early part of the fall, and tomatoes are often more susceptible to diseases in those kinds of conditions. Probably better off trying to find tomatoes that are disease resistant rather than relying on something like pruning to try to mitigate potential for disease. Pruning tomatoes takes work, it takes time, and that is one more chore to have to do in the garden when there's already enough to do. I think sometimes it's actually worth it and even better to kind of embrace the chaos. Sometimes less is more when it comes to fussing over every detail about each of the plants. And I'm not convinced that you're getting a return on all that effort in terms of your tomato harvest. I think actually I know that we get a better harvest by letting the tomato plants go, letting them produce however they want to produce. We get a ton of tomatoes. I'll take getting a lot of tomatoes that I can use straight away in the kitchen over, having a few tomatoes that are maybe marginally at best better. I find letting the tomatoes be, letting them go, and you end up with a nicer harvest that you're better able to use for all the things that you want. So I'm not pruning tomatoes, but there are a couple things that I do instead. So one of the things we do is we do limb up the tomatoes. This is the main part of the plant. And this guy here is a side shoot. And then this is the leaf. And this is what we're going to be removing at the lower level here. So again, main part of this is the main tomato plant. This is a side shoot, and then over here we've got this leaf that actually just broke right off. That's easy. I'm gonna cut this one here. Yeah, this is no good, so we'll just cut this off. So now, I mean, even just taking out that little bit, which took, a minute, that's already making this nice and open and airy. It lets me really easily get in here, and there's not many weeds, but I can really easily see what's in here. And you can start to kind of underplant in here if you want to do some succession planting and start some seeds. And here's an example. Under one of the tomatoes that we have already limbed up, we have some winter greens that have self-seeded, and they can start growing while we're waiting for the tomatoes to continue. All right, so next thing we're gonna do is tying up. And again, this is something that we just do as the tomatoes need it. As this branch is going off in different directions, I want to give it some more support. What I've done is I've kind of made like a figure 8 loop with the twine, so it kind of crosses. Then I'm just going to do a simple knot. So I'm not trying to like really pull it out of place. I just want to put a little bit of tension on it so it's coming back towards the canes. It's kind of the middle of August. Is it the middle of August? It's exactly the middle of August. So let's do a tomato update. I've been really, really happy with how the tomato plants are growing in general. But let me talk to you what we got here. This tomato is called Black Sea. We had some the other day, so we have some pictures of what it looks like. It's got really, really good flavor. So they're growing well. They've ripened early. They taste really good. So far this is a winning tomato. This is the first year that we were growing Black Sea. This is Council Bluffs, and you can see these tomatoes are massive. So depending on how quickly they ripen, they might be too slow for us. So I'm hoping they ripen in the next couple of weeks. That would be ideal. If they don't, this might not be a tomato that we can grow given our conditions. Yeah, so this is a cherry type tomato. This is Sun Gold. We grow this every year. We really love it. It produces really well. They ripen really quickly. They taste amazing. So always a favorite in the garden. And then this one here is another cherry type tomato. This one's Lemon Drop, and I think this is the second year that we've grown this one. We actually just did a taste test between Lemon Drop and Sun Gold, and I think we both agree that Lemon Drop actually has a bit of an edge on taste. And another thing to note, so that Lemon Drop is a heirloom, and that means you actually can collect seeds and try to grow that from seed each year. The Sun Gold is a hybrid, so you have to buy a new seed. This next one is Silvery Fir Tree. I love the way the plant looks. I love these leaves, which I know is not why we're growing tomatoes, but I can't help it. This is a determinate tomato, which means it's never going to get any bigger than this. The tomatoes themselves, they're kind of small. They have been ripening on the earlier side, so that's been a good thing. Flavor-wise, I think they're okay. I think this is a question mark on, are we gonna keep growing it year after year? And this is why we try to grow a lot of tomatoes, because the chipmunks also like them. This one here, this is Garden Gem, and this one we have grown before. So this is a plum type tomato, and so it has those same characteristics. It's got kind of a thick flesh. It's a little bit mealy, but you get that in plum type tomatoes. Anyway, I think the flavor is pretty good. It produces, there's a ton of tomatoes all over this plant. And I actually have a couple that are ripe even today. Admittedly, I do pick these maybe a little tiny bit early, because then at least if they're inside, the chipmunks can't get them. This is also another early ripening. We've gotten a bunch of these already, and there's a ton on the plant. So there we have it. There's a quick tour of what's going on with our tomatoes. Been really happy with what we're getting this year in terms of how much they're producing, in terms of flavor. We're getting a nice variety, and I love being able to use fresh tomatoes in the kitchen. Another note about our tomato trellis. This, to me, this year, doing this kind of teepee structure with the 3 bamboo canes has been my favorite way of tying up the tomatoes. We've done, I feel like we've tried everything imaginable and bought everything or constructed everything imaginable. I don't know, maybe I'll put up a picture of the massive structure that we built last year, which was super sturdy, but took forever for us to put together and to take apart. It's been super easy just to tie the tomatoes right to this as they've been growing. There's been like almost no maintenance with the tomatoes this year. It was like as they started to grow, we put in these, we've been tying them off, and the only thing left is just picking the tomatoes before the chipmunks get them. So if you're struggling with your tomatoes or you just have a question, feel free to drop them down in the comments. If you found this video helpful, please consider giving a like, give us a follow on the channel so we can keep making videos for you. And until next time, I'll see you in the garden. Hi, it's Dan from the Frog Pond Veg Patch. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. That'll help us create new content to share with you. And while you're here, check out this next video I have lined up for you. And don't forget to like and subscribe. That's the best way to help us out on this channel.